All right, welcome. Chaim. It's now our fifth Haggadah shiur. How many people were on the COVID Haggadah shiur? I remember Chesky there. He was on the COVID, yeah. That's where it all started. Oh God, come in. Go in, make a l'chaim. Grab some chametz. Ari, you were on the COVID Haggadah shiur? What? No, that was the second year. No, COVID, there had to have been service. It was only service. You were from Toronto. The next year you were on. The next year we were down here. You were in Toronto, but COVID itself, everyone was on COVID. Everyone was on Zoom.
Was Flashing everything?
No, it worked. The Zoom. It was in my house.
It was all Flashing?
That was in my house. Yeah.
Flashes,
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Baruch Hashem, we have a bunch of years of Haggadah shiur to go back on, a bunch of recordings to look back on. So I'm not going to go over everything again, obviously. I remember the first year when we worked on, really the reason, the impetus for the shiur was that people they were running their first Seder ever, and they wanted to just understand. They finally realized that they have no idea what's going on in Haggadah, no idea what's going on in Maggid. They just wanted basic structural stuff. So that's, if you want that, go back to the recording from 5780. I think it was actually, we did two shiurim then, that year. And that's really like the basic structural stuff. But we're gonna go into pick on a couple of nekudas in the middle over here, and maybe just be merames to some of the Dvar. Oh, welcome, Chesky. Win or lose? Win or lose? Game tonight. So you win or lose? Okay. That's what. You look fresh. I was like, wow, that's good. You come straight from a baseball game. You look so fresh. I'm impressive. Okay, so I'm going to jump over on the first parts, but the highlight, basically, the idea of the first parts we were describing is how the Leil Seder is different than any other avodah the rest of the year. That the entire avodah of our Suda becomes an avodah every step. And avodah is similar to tefillah. That's why we end off with nirtzah. Why do we end off with nirtzah? The same way we end off with Elokai Netzar and the tefillah. You ask Rebbeinu Shalom to Makabel to say your tefillah saseder, basically your avodah saseder. So everything becomes part of that avodah, and therefore we open with enunciating what we're going to do in this avodah. These are the 15 steps of our avodah. Get ready for what we're going to do. We enunciate it, we speak it out, because last year I spoke about Arichos, the importance of being medaber on Pesach. Pesach is the importance of articulating. That was the first freedom that a person really has, is the ability to articulate something, to say what's on their mind, to ask questions. So the Torah recognizes, the Haggadah recognizes, the Havodah of Leil Seder recognizes the importance of being able to communicate properly in the Avodah of Cheres, and therefore we are obsessed with communication at the Leil Seder. I've also discussed Barichos in the past, and even earlier this year, a couple of Shabbosim ago, how Kiddush on the Leil Seder takes on a whole nother level. It's a whole nother darga. Zeichel L'Tzias Mitzrayim, where we say in Kiddush every Friday night. So that's Kiddush Leil Seder. In certain ways, might be the Iker Kiddush of the entire year. We're not going to go through that now. So but I've spoken about Barichos in other years. Okay. One word that I will repeat, because of how you say this, I think it is, but it speaks to this idea. Buys into the same ideas from the Netziv, Haggadah. Also this year we have a special connection to the Divrei Torah of the Netziv, as we've been learning Haggadah every Shabbos before davening, right? Or Shia, president of the Haggadah Club, right? There we go. And we've been learning the Netziv. The Netziv says he's tired. Basically, the Mishnah Berurah's kasha. Why are we washing on karpas? Why are we washing on vegetables if we're not makbid mikars in on the stuff the rest of the year? And he basically says the idea of Leil Seder is we transport ourselves to the Zman HaMikdash. We're time travelers on Leil Seder. We're in the future, we're in the past, we're in the present, but we everything we do is Ki'ilu, we're sitting in the Beis HaMikdash, Ki'ilu we're living in Avodah. The Avodah Sachila takes on a whole new level on the Leil Seder, and part of that is just like in the Zman HaMikdash, you'd be makbid al Taras HaYadayim, al Taras HaKodesh, to wash on a vegetable that got wet so that it shouldn't become tameh. So too on the Leil Seder we wash our hands. We live that way, we wash our hands that way. He suggests that's why we wear a kittel, because he says a kittel was the beged chashuv. So a white linen cloth was a beged chashuv. Chashuv is mana mikdash. And it speaks of the whole idea how we are living every step of the night is meant to be lived on a different darga. Okay, let's come to Magid. And Magid Holach Ma'anya I speak out every year, and I'll continue to speak it every year because I do believe it is probably the most yisaidistic vart for the Leil Seder. Is the Mahalach of the Nesivos, Yaakov Milisa. His Mahalach in Holach Ma'anya. All right? Ask the very basic questions. Why is it in Aramaic? It's clear from the Rambam it was something. That's water? Yes. Thank you. Appreciate it. Why is it in Aramaic? Why is it more in the Rambam that it was we were masaking it later? What are you trying to say? You know, what is the whole expression, basically, of Holach Manya? Yes. And he says the mashal, beautiful mashal, says, imagine, it says, a person is in jail, right? They get out of jail, right? They're sent there one time. Every year, the day they get out of jail, they're going to make a Sudas Haidah, right? Imagine they do the same thing again. They end up in jail again. Are they going to sit in jail making the Sudas Haidah on the anniversary of the first time they got out of jail? They're going to call their cellmate guys together, make a little party. Oh, why? Because I got out of jail the first time. This is my anniversary of getting out of jail. They're telling you, but you're right back where you were. Who cares? You're making an anniversary celebration, and you got out of jail. And he says this was the kasha the children, the families would ask their fathers. The first Seder when? The first Seder in Bavel. Bavel is the first Golus after Yetzias Mitzrayim. We get out of Mitzrayim, we're on a high, we go through the Midbar, we go through Eretz Yisrael, we conquer it, build the base of Mikdash. And then comes the horrors of Golus Bavel and Nebuchadnezzar, and we're back in Golus. And the question, the difficulty of that first Seder must have been to be celebrating Yetzias Mitzrayim when it seems like we're right back in Mitzrayim. Even worse, in certain ways. Right? And Holach Ma'anya was written as a teretz to that. And essentially what Holach Ma'anya is saying, Ki Holach Ma'anya dechol evasad bar Mitzrayim. You're correct. We are eating the same lechem oini dechol evasad bar Mitzrayim. Yes. We are in the same matzah that we were then. We're just as poor. We are avoid with Nebuchadnezzar. Ki Holach Ma'anya we are eating. Why? What's the teretz? Why are we eating Ki Holach Ma'anya? Why are we celebrating the lechem oini in Mitzrayim? And we're going to make a party, we say. We're defiant. We are going to make an anniversary party for leaving Mitzrayim. Why? Because Yetzias Mitzrayim was not about Yetzias Mitzrayim. It wasn't about a one-time thing. It was about a story. It was about a bris ben abasorim. It was about a haftacha to Klal Yisrael. It told us that the same way you came out now, you are going to come out in the future. That's the difference. Right? If there was a get out of jail free card every time that it says, even though you're back in, you're going to get out again. You don't know how long it's going to be, how horrible it's going to be, but you're going to get out. That's worth celebrating, even though if you're back in jail. So the whole point is to say to the children, it's in Aramaic because it was written in that tkufa back in Golus Bavel. We're going to tell them, we're eating the same lechem oini, but we're kol dichman, we're going to make a party because Hashat Hacha l'shana above Eretz Yisrael. Simple, but I think sets the tone beautifully for what we're doing here. Okay.
Just because the last Golus is the one we didn't know the duration.
What?
The last Golus is the only one we didn't know the duration.
What do you mean by the last? I'm not sure what you mean.
The Golus now. The Golus Mitzrayim knew how long we were supposed to be there for.
And what does that do with that? Golus Bavel is when it was written. We did know the duration of Golus Bavel.
We did not know.
They knew 70 years. They had a nevuah for 70 years. But still, they're asking. We're back.
It's easier when you know the length of the tunnel's coming. As opposed to now, we don't know.
We still say it. I'm not.
No, you made the differentiation before. That's what I was asking. So we didn't know how long it's going to last. That's what I was asking.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure in what context I made that differentiation, but I think either way, the point is we are back in bubble. Okay. Now, last year I spoke Barichus about a fascinating sheet of the Rasameach. Actually, I spoke of this in Shabbos Haggadah, but the sheet of the Rasameach. Can I crack open some windows, maybe? That's some air. The sheet of the Rasameach says that basically, Ketzer's opinion is that Magid, he says, is all one long kiddush, basically. Basically, that's the idea. We are the same way we make Kiddush alakos. There's an idea every Friday night to make Kiddush, right? Zochus Yom Shabbos, Zocher Yayin, right? So he says the Rambam writes. The Rambam says, what's the mocker for the mitzvah of Leil Seder? Not like everyone else. Everyone thinks he asks someone, what is the mocker? What is the pasuk in the Torah that tells us about Leil Seder? What we have to do? Most people say God to Leviticus. The Rambam says incorrect. The mitzvah of Leil Seder is learnt out from remembering from Zochus Yom Mitzrayim, remembering the day that you left Mitzrayim. That's what the Rambam says. The mitzvah says to tell us happening. The Rambam says Zochus Yom Shabbos Lekachim. So what's the Rambam saying? What's the real tifka, the depth of the Rambam saying? Is the same way. On Shabbos, we have a mitzvah of Zocher. The mitzvah is not Kiddush, to drink a cup of wine. The mitzvah is to remember that today is Shabbos, to remember what Shabbos means to us. We do it aliyah. So it says Meir Simcha also the mitzvah of Leil Seder is to be mafar saying what's great to us about Leil Seder. We do it aliyah. That's how it explains. That's why we pour the second kais before Haggadah starts. This basically just changes the whole like approach to Haggadah. It's basically one long kiddush. The Shprei Leket, the Greek says you're supposed to maybe hold the kais, the entire magid, because that's in the same way you'd hold the kais during kiddush. The whole magid is essentially a kiddush ala kais. You know, some of Farshim ask, why isn't there a bracha on magid? Why don't we make a bracha? Right? Like the Meir Simcha, the kasha doesn't even start. That is the bracha, where it's one long bracha. The same way, it's like asking, why don't we make a bracha before we start kiddush for the mitzvah of kiddush? Kiddush is a bracha. Magid is a bracha. It's one long bracha that we're making kiddush basically. That we're basically making kiddush with magid. Brachas for halal and magid. Which bracha for halal?
No, maybe you should think because it's not to say there should say bracha.
We don't. So what would you say, Lekar Meir Simcha? You would or you wouldn't?
You wouldn't because it was one big kiddush. So it's all part of the same.
I would think that he wouldn't say to make a bracha, but we don't. There's been Haggadah that make a bracha on halal in the middle of magid.
They talk about it. But what about making al-gafra? If it's one kiddush, why is that not? Because
you say al-gafra at the end.
You shouldn't do it one kiddush.
No, it's a second kiddush. It's not the first kiddush. You have to make another bracha al very priyagofen. It's the second kiddush.
But the first kiddush is not there.
The first kiddush is the regular kiddush al yontif. This is the kiddush al Leil Seder.
The middle of Magid, if the whole thing is one big.
Same way. I mean, it would be no different than, let's say, by kiddush by days, you have a hefsek, between, I don't know if you say im tashiv and zok, or you have a hefsek in between. There's no problem with it. But yeah, you should say it. You should say it all as one thing. Okay, I want to focus on a different nekuda in the Rambam. Okay, the Rambam says. When the Rambam says, how do you do this mitzvah of Zochus Yom Shabbos? It says, Tzorich lasos b'shinur b'layla zeh, kadesh yishur abonim v'yishu. The Rambam is saying a chilek of the mitzvah of Zocher Esayom Yishayitzos Mitzrayim is making sure that children ask. Right? We know this. We know that children asking is a big part. Why do we do it? So that the children should ask. Now, in the Rambam, where is this from? Where do we get this from? That there's an inyan of she'elas atnagos, to ask shaylas on Leil Seder, that should be a chilek of the mitzvah of Zocher Esayom Yishayitzos Mitzrayim. Right? According to the Rambam, it's just a mitzvah of Zocher. Remember that tonight is Yitzias Mitzrayim. Remember what happened. Where does this idea of children asking questions come from?
Maybe verse 1.
What?
Maybe verse 1.
What is it saying about asking questions in that? V'yigat Levincha also says to tell them. It doesn't say about asking questions. It does say in the Torah that your child will ask you. But how do you know that that's a chiyuv that your child should ask? It just says that when your child asks you, you say this and that. But it doesn't say anyway. There's a chiyuv of shayla that children should be asking questions. Right? So where does we get this from? And the Rambam saying a chiyuv, a chelik, and a necessary chelik of mitzvah sipur is shayla. Famously, Reb Chaim asked that. We'll get to maybe a little more about Riechus in the Reb Chaim, but he asked. Shaila, what's the difference between the mitzvah of Zocher Yom Shayitzos Mitzrayim and the mitzvah of Leil Seder and the rest of the year? You always have a mitzvah of Zechir Yitzias Mitzrayim. Every night you have to remember Yitzias Mitzrayim. So what's different? What's special Leil Seder about the mitzvah of remembering Yitzias Mitzrayim? Every single night of the year you have to remember Yitzias Mitzrayim, right? So what's the teretz? Anyone know the three things Reb Chaim says? I'm going to show you say this every year at the Seder. It's you know, so it's Reb Chaim. Right? One of the Reb Chaim says three things. We'll get to the three. One of them is one of the three truths of Chaim says is that the derech shiur l'tshuva, that you have to do a derech shiur l'tshuva on Lo Seder. And the three Reb Chaim is picking. Reb Chaim wasn't just saying the inyanim of Lo Seder. You know, there's lots of inyanim. He's saying what are the essence of the chiyuv of Lo Seder is it has to be done derech shiur l'tshuva. So the shaila is, where does this come from? So I think like this. In the Rambam, remember the Rambam, the mitzvah is remember Zachar Shari Sasam Eretz Yisrael. Now the Rambam says, the Rambam, and this is based on Midrashim. He says even if he says you have to tell it over children. And mitzvah l'udiyim shemar v'gat l'vincha. Meaning in the Rambam, the higat l'vincha, that pasuk that everyone knows that they think is the mitzvah halayla, is a chelek of the mitzvah of Zachar, meaning to remember means to tell your children. Now, what does it mean when there's a mitzvah of Zachar in the Rambam? What is required in the mitzvah of Zachar? What does a person have to be doing? Think about Kiddush on Shabbos. What does Zachar, Kiddush on Shabbos mean? What it means to remember Shabbos. What it means to remember Shabbos, I'm going to think about it in the Rambam, is to be Kiddush Shabbos is to contrast, is to differentiate, is to say Shabbos is different than other things, and how is Shabbos different, right? What's the right? The Rambam holds there's a mitzvah midiraisa to say Havdalah, right? Where is there anywhere in the Torah says to do Havdalah? Right? The Rambam says the same pasuk. Zachar Yom Shabbos L'Kadra is a mitzvah of Havdalah. What does Havdalah have to do with Zachar, with remembering Shabbos as Kiddush? It's the opposite. Because the Rambam saying that the Rambam holds that the idea of Zachar is to say, here is a line, this is it, this is the fence, to differentiate, to contrast things, is the mitzvah of Zachar in the Rambam's world. Okay? So the mitzvah, so if the Rambam is saying the mitzvah of Lo Seder is Zachar as Yom Shayat, that means the mitzvah in the Rambam is to contrast Lo Seder to other nights of the year. And to say, Lo Seder is different. How is Lo Seder different? And what is different now? What has happened? The contrast, and the contrast includes other things. Just like by Havdalah, we start bringing in Yisrael La'amim. What does Yisrael La'amim have to do with Shabbos? It's about separating, understanding the essence of what it is, and pointing out other things that are included in that. So if it's Kedusha Shabbos, Techol, we bring in Yisrael and Amim also. It's about separation, showing how things are different. So it means the cheftza of the mitzvah of Zachar is to show how things are different. Step one. Step two in the Rambam is that V'higat Levincha is part of the mitzvah of Zachar. That doesn't mean it's not a mitzvah of chinuch. We always have the mitzvah of chinuch. You always have to be chinuch your children. That means the essence of the mitzvah is to differentiate and include your children in that recognition of what's different. Right? So now put those two things together. The mitzvah is to differentiate, to show differences, to include your children in V'higat Levincha, by telling them, by including them, by involving them in that mitzvah.
Is it better if they figure it out on their own?
So there you go. That's the duty. How does Rambam say you have to ask questions? Rambam doesn't say teach your children 4 different languages to say Manishtana. That's not what he says. He says you want to include your children in the mitzvah of Zachar, you have to have them ask for Yarmu Manishtana. That's it. Adkan Rambam. That is the whole thing. You have to draw out of your children. They have to recognize what is different about tonight. What is tonight special? You do that, you've been Yetzer Chiyuv. That is the Chiyuv of Manishtana. That is what are we trying to do. Now listen, obviously we have to teach our children because otherwise they're just going to sit there and not be involved and not know what to do. But if all they do, if they have no understanding of what's going on and what they're supposed to be doing, and the fact that Lo Seder is special, all they know is that if they say Manishtana in 4 different languages, they're going to get a present. That it's missed the point in the Rambam. And you missed the whole point. Where does this come from, this idea of Shiloh Tshuva? Is because you have to involve your children in the act of Zachar. The act of Zachar is to say, this is different than this night is different than other nights. How do you get your children involved in that act? By forcing them to ask, what is going on? Why is Tati acting crazy? Why is Tati throwing frogs at me? Why is Tati, doing weird things? Once you do that, and you say, why is Tati doing that? Because tonight's special. That's it. Now you've drawn that distinction. You have drawn them into your mitzvah, and they've asked, why is tonight special? You've told them, because tonight's Lo Seder, Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim. That is the essence of the Chiyuv according to the Rambam. So it just puts a whole new spin on what Manishtana is really supposed to be doing. It's about children asking, why is tonight different? Why is that the mitzvah? Because that's what Zochar Yom Mitzrayim means. Saying tonight is different than other nights, and getting children to say that tonight is different. Once you've gotten your child to say tonight is different, that's how you've been your Iker Chiyuv, according to the Rambam.
That's the third shiur, that's the second shiur. Is that 3 points?
I only said one so far. I'll get to the other two. I'll get to the other two later on. Okay, last year I mentioned quickly, a little more because I saw some nice points brought out one of the new Haggadahs I got this year about this. But I mentioned the fact that there's a Goin or a Chaim that talk about the fact that Leil Seder. I should put AC on it. We probably should have, but now it's a stick late. Okay. Huh? Yeah.
You think we open those now?
No, this is Shiloh. You know where the AC room is? You want to run up there and do it? For the oil?
Do I know how to do it?
I know how to do it. Huh? It's the bottom one, and then you'll figure it. Just press on. A guy like you could figure it out. A mensch like yourself. I just hope it's open.
Summer. Thank you. I wasn't hot up until now.
I'm boiling hot. Okay. Oh yeah. All right. As I said, that I spoke out last year from a Goyin or a Chaim that there's an idea in Leil Seder that Laila Kiyoyim Yoyim, that there's a concept that the night, Leil Seder Hashem, the pasuk, it's a pes and a pasuk in Tehillim, that the night of Chamisha Sar B'Nisim Mitzrayim was like the day. It was lit up, right? If you're obsessed with the day becoming the night, right? Now this was Leil Seder, it was even weirder. Legacy Mitzrayim, that Laila Kiyoyim Yoyim, that was a night that stayed like day. It wasn't entirely. That's how the Goyin explains the Shina Lashon Manishtaina Halayla Hazeh. We call it Leilas. Leilas is Lashon Dekeva, right? So Leilas. So that you would think that it's saying Manishtaina Halayla Hazois. Why is it Lashon Zacher? Laila is the Lashon Dekeva. So it says the Goyin. It says Manishtaina Halayla Hazeh because it wasn't actually night. It was Laila Kiyam Yor. It shined like the day, and therefore Halayla Hazeh. He says it's Lashon Zachar because Yom is Lashon Zachar. Mashenken Laila is Lashon Kiyam. Just saw some interesting. Myself was on this. Number one, that Achredim ask, how can you say Hallel by Leil Seder? You're not say Hallel at night. So when we say Hallel during the day, Laila Kiyam Yor. It's a din like a day. You could say Hallel at night. Another cute shot is asked, why would the story with the Talmidei Chachamim that they were made in the story of Leil Seder at Sheher Lehem, and they said Rabbi Seinig is Makir Shel Shacharis. I mean, what happened? They didn't notice that it was day outside. Say that Seder had such a power to it, tapped into the koiches of Laila B'Siyas Mitzrayim. It was Laila Kiyam Yor. It was night to day the entire time. Okay. Huh? Lo Shemurim. That's Kiyam. Yeah. I think maybe that's part of what our Chaim says Gufa. Also, another thing, Shmuel HaLeket says, he says, Baruch HaMakom Baruch Hu. This is the one that caught me. I think this was interesting. He says, Baruch HaMakom Baruch Hu is Birchas HaTorah. We're making Birchas HaTorah, we say Baruch HaMakom Baruch Hu. We're ready to start. I don't know why at that point in the God we have to say Birchas HaTorah. It's a good shaila. But Baruch HaMakom Baruch Hu is Birchas HaTorah, thanking the Rebbeinu Shalom before we're about to start the Haggadah. The question is, why are we making Birchas HaTorah now? Like, what happened? What is this? It's the middle of the night. Elamai. Laila Kiyam Yor, it's a new day. So now Baruch HaMakom Baruch Hu, you have to make a new Birchas HaTorah. We have Gala here. So I said before, Reb Chaim, to dedicate the shiur l'Zchus Shlema for my share. Try to say over some of his Torah, say over the same things every year. Would love it with a tremendous ava. Would like be done b'ayim kishel davar. It was the first time ever. So Reb Chaim, I was saying before, Reb Chaim asked, what's the difference Leil Seder from the rest of the year? You were able to get it?
It's the one, the first one, the second one. Inside one? The inside one was locked.
Inside room was locked, yeah.
Inside room, right?
It's locked, shoot. Okay, we gotta get that open. All right. So no, it's not on. What did you turn on?
I'm like, I remember being an inside room.
Yeah, that's an inside room. There we go.
I'm like, maybe it's the time it also does it. The one, the first one, second one.
Okay. Yeah, anyway, fine. It's all good. So Reb Chaim asked, what's the difference between Leil Seder and the rest of the year? You always have to remember Yitzias Mitzrayim the rest of the year. So Reb Chaim says three things. One I already mentioned. Derech Shailu Tshuva. We've spoken about Yuchus, where that comes from. Next, the Reb Chaim says is Maskil B'Gnusum B'Sayim B'Shevach. He says you have to be marba the sipur, which includes being maskil nusum b'sayim b'shevach. What is maskil nusum b'sayim b'shevach? We spoke in the past year. It's a machlokes. Rav and Shmuel. Is it avodim hayinu with the teretz v'yotzienu, or is it b'tchila ivdei avodah zarah hayavasenu with the teretz of achshav kavodah amakum lavodah? So, and we do both, and we have two different Haggadahs basically, right? We've got the four kashas manashtana. Then we jump into avodah mayinu with the first teretz, the physical gula. Then we do arba banim with the daled kashas of the arba banim, and then we respond to that with metchila devar hayavasenu. The second Haggadah. So that's the second thing Reb Chaim says. The third thing he says is Reb Elazar ben Azariah that Shimon ben Gamliel that Kol Shlomo Shlosh Devarim Elu Pesach Lo Yotze Dech Lavasoi. It's a big shiloh. What's chayvasoi? You're not yotze your chiyuv. Which chiyuv are you not yotze? Many of the Farshim say let's say chayvasoi means you're not mekayim your chiyuv Haggadah. You got the mitzvah of Leil Seder, Zachas Yermazeh, whatever it is. You are not mekayim if you don't say Pesach Matzah and explain why Pesach Matzah. The mitzvahs become part of the avodah of Haggadah. So that's the difference. You have to say Pesach Matzah, and that's basically that covers kind of the structure of the entire Haggadah from beginning to end. There's Shiloh Tshuva. You got the four Shilohs, then you got Mitzvah Nusum B'Sayim B'Shevach. Okay, we go off on a little tangent with Aram Yavidavi, but then we do Shum Gamliel, and we do the three things. The Olam is Moisef. I'm sure I said this, and says this, but others have also said this over. That there's a fourth thing that we know. The Olam is Moisef many things in Reb Chaim, but many of them are stupid. I think they're missing the point of Reb Chaim, like Lamashal. He says someone would say, "Oh, I missed it. Why? Because the Rambam and the Chinuch also mentioned you have to give Haggadah to the Rebbeinu Shalom Leil Seder. Where that comes from? What is that part of? How is that Avodah of Leil Seder? You have to give Haggadah, right? So he missed that. You have to say Haggadah. You have to say thank you Hashem. If you take us out of Mitzrayim as opposed to the rest of the year. Yeah, okay. Reb Chaim knew that. He knew the Rambam Sefer Mitzvahs. The Rambam, doesn't mention Haggadah when he says the chefs of the mitzvah. Why? Because Reb Chaim's asking is about the essence. What is ma'akev in the mitzvah that you have to do? He knows that there's tons of things that we do on Leil Seder we don't do the rest of the year. That's not his point. And he knows those tons of things have good mekaris for them. Mekaris from Rishonim and mekaris from Chazal. But he wants to know in the mitzvah of the Deraisa where the Torah says, remember every night of the year that you left Mitzrayim. Remember Leil Seder. How is the Torah telling you something different on Leil Seder than the rest of the year? That other Inyanim get included. This is not the point of that. That's not. Reb Chaim knows that. So to throw in like a million different things that are also included on Leil Seder and make a laundry list of things is not the point. But there is one that L'chara is mefurish in Rambam. His pasuk is mefurish in the pasuk. The Rambam says mitzvahs eshes Torah the saper nisan floish and asel l'sein Mitzrayim belel chamash v'zish ne'emar. No, it's not actually so mefurish in the Rambam, as I remember it being. Okay, whether it's on mefurish Rambam, it could be mefurish in the pasuk. But what many people want to say is that you have to mention Leil Seder that's an anniversary event. You have to mention today is the day we went to Mitzrayim, whereas the rest of the year you're obviously not mentioning today is the day we left Mitzrayim. You just have to mention that we left Mitzrayim. On Leil Seder, you have to mention B'layla Zeh Hitzionu. It's somewhere else in the Rambam that he says it, and I remember where he says that you have to say. B'layla Zeh that on this night Hashem took us out. Oh, yeah. Later in Halacha Beis it says B'layla Zeh Podos Hanish Kodesh Baruch V'Yitzon L'Chayos. You have to say on this night Hashem took us out. So you have to mention that we're celebrating an anniversary event of the fact that we left. So that was another asaf and a fourth thing. But my shur wanted to say that maybe Reb Chaim didn't hold like that. Reb Chaim l'shitasa. Where's Reb Chaim l'shitasa? Because there's another kasha. It says Yachol Erish Chayish Tamar Loimer B'Yemahu Yachol Mi B'Oidiyim. Right, Tamar Loimer B'Avor Zeh. Part of the Haggadah. You might think you could say Haggadah from Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Torah said on that day. Okay, on that day, so you should that should be the end of the member. If on that day, that means on the Chamishasar. Why in the world do you think you could do it B'Oidiyim? It's not Pesach. It said B'Yemahu. So Chaim wanted to say that maybe you can be kind of the mitzvah with Taisus Yontiv. Maybe you can make early Pesach. You can make early Yontiv. And when you make early Yontiv, it would be early enough to say Haggadah. That's what the Baal Haggadah is Bavarnim. You might think you can make early Yontiv and be Yotzei. There has to be mitzvahs matzah, and matzah has to be done at night. Matzah cannot be done during the day. That's pashut. So it's Bavarnim early Yontiv. Right? The Shiur. What?
I explained by Yamahu. It's nighttime. That's by Yamahu.
Bayoimahu, right? Okay, yeah, very good. So the shiur is okay, but if the point is if Reb Chaim is saying you could be yotze at that point, was just saying Haggadah Bayoimahu on earlier during the day. How can you say today is the day Hashem took us out? It's not today. Today is not the day. It's still the 14th of Nisan. It's not the right day. This is what Reb Chaim held, that you do not have, that it's not ma'akev to say the Laila Hazer Etzenu. It doesn't have to be the anniversary of the day Hashem took us out. It could be even earlier, and he does not agree. He does not agree that you have to say Laila Hazer Etzenu. The Rambam says Laila Hazer Etzenu, but Vaistais it's not ma'akev.
What about called in the Rosh Hashanah mentioned you have to like see yourself as if you're.
Why isn't that? That's not the Rambam holds it's not ma'akev. Where?
You know what?
Reb Chaim holds it's not ma'akev. Why did Reb Chaim? You're asking a new thing. Why didn't he say Bavor Zeh? Let's do the lashon. There, b'chol dor Reb Chaim liris esatz afilat tzim mitzrayim. Shneimar esonot tzim misham. Why didn't he say b'chol dor v'dor? I don't want to think about it. Why didn't you say b'chol dor v'dor? That's part of this parak. It sounds like you have to do it. Chayiv Adam. Chayiv Haaretz Tatzmai. Chayiv, that one should be part of it. I don't think about it. Okay. Many ask why we say Amor Ablaz Ben Azai Renik Ben Shimon Son of Lezachis Shtamiyot Yisman Tzayim Belela is Achadar Shim Tzayim Shanemar, right? Lamatiskas Yom Tzayis Meretz Chaim Kol Yimei Chayecha. Why are we bringing this member at all? This member has nothing to do with Lel Seder. This member Lamatiskas Yom Tzayis Meretz Chaim Kol Yimei Chayecha is the Chiyuv to remember Yitzias Mitzrayim every night of the entire year. So if anything, this says the last thing that belongs in Haggadah, right? Leave that as a kasha, something to think about. But from there, so a lot of people want to say it's gufa to bring out, to contrast, right? What we're saying is the whole point is to contrast, but so maybe to contrast the fact that the difference between the rest of the night and Lel Seder. Now, okay, but what I want to get to is Reb Chaim does mention Maskul Nusum B'Sayim B'Shevach. Why is Maskul Nusum B'Sayim B'Shevach one of the things that's so mak? If you want to say, you have to say the story, fine. Why, out of all the things we have to do that the Rambam mentioned, why is Maskul B'Gnus and B'Sayim B'Shevach the thing that is the essence of Lel Seder, right? And B'chlal, where does this idea come from? Where does Maskul B'Gnus? Where does Chazal get this from? You have to be Maskul B'Gnus and B'Sayim B'Shevach. To start with something bad and end with something good. Why is that part of the Ikar Chiv Midarai? So what does it say in the Torah you have to do that? Where did Chazal get it from? Why is Reb Chaim listing it as one of the three things? The three things he picks that are mamish ma'akev is Maskul B'Gnus and B'Sayim B'Shevach. Where did this come from? Torah based what we were saying before in the Rambam. It's beautiful. What's the whole chefza of the mitzvah of to remember the night you left Mitzrayim, Vigat Levincha? What? Is to contrast, is to show this is different than other times, right? Just like by Kiddush V'Avdalah, what we do is we show how different Shabbos is than the rest of the time. And Lel Seder, you have to show what is different. So you have to show how tonight is special. That's you have to bring that out of the children. That tonight is special. And the other thing you have to show is what does it go? How it started, how it's going, all right? So you have to show how it started, how it's going. You have to be able to contrast that and show people. Maskul B'Gnus and B'Sayim B'Shevach. It started terribly, it's going awesome. Maskul B'Gnus and B'Sayim B'Shevach is part of the Ikar Chiyav of Zochar as Yom HaZeh, because that's what we do with Zochar. We contrast things and we show differences between one thing. That's where it comes from in the Torah, that Lel Seder is different, and Maskul B'Gnus and B'Sayim B'Shevach is the essence of Zochar as Yom HaZeh. It's the essence of the mitzvah of the night, because the essence of the mitzvah is to show what changed, what is different. This was, and now this isn't, and now this isn't. That's what I think where Chaim got that from. Okay, when you move on, mentioned Baruch Makom Baruch Hu. The Shmuel Leket says that those are Birchas HaTorah. Let's say there's a Netziv here. Maybe we'll save it for Shabbos. One of the things my Shar points out over here says that we asked, there's psukim in the Torah that talk about three different places where the Torah talks about children asking you, saying things to children, asking you things. That's the Chachams. That's the Chacham Shaila. Right? I didn't actually go over this one before, so I got to get it together now. Chacham is ma'edus v'chukim. Oh man, that's it. There's a lot here. Mohavoida is lois lochem. Right, and we answer him about Vorzas Hashem Libaseis Mitzrayim. Okay, then we've got the Tom who doesn't ask anything. Mazois from Martin because he goes to Mitzrayim, and then you've got the Shena Delishal who obviously doesn't ask anything. Now, if you look in the Torah, we don't give any of the answers. When the Torah has these psukim, when the kids ask these questions in the Torah, none of these answers actually are what the Torah says for these things, right? When the Chacham asks Ma'edus Chukim Mishpatim in Devarim, there's a whole thing about Yetzias Mitzrayim and Podei Son HaKadosh Baruch Hu taking us out. We don't tell him. It doesn't say Ata Emelok Hilchos HaPesach Yom Tzedach HaPesach HaTikoyim. It says something else entirely in the Torah. We have the pasuk in the Torah of Mohavodus Eslachem. Right? It doesn't say, that's not where it says Bavor Hashem Li. Also, the only one where we respond what the Torah says is to the Tam. The Tam says Mazois, and you tell him why is that? Why is the Tam the only one who says Mazois is the only one who we say the other two we don't give a teretz b'chlal as to what the Torah says. So, Shar just pointed out is that it's before in the psukim of the Torah. If you look at the Torah by the Rasha and the Chacham, Ma'avodas Haslechem and Ma'edus Chukim Hashpatim, it doesn't say V'amarta Elav. It doesn't say you're not necessarily responding to him. They're general questions and there are general answers that we give for this question. By the time it says Mazois V'amarta Elav, you say to him because you got to answer the tribe. Right? It directly addresses him in the Torah, V'amarta Elov. Therefore, it fits. It's consistent in the Haggadah. When the Tam asks Mazois, we give the answer that the Torah gives. Because it says V'amarta Elov. You have to say it to him. So for whatever reason, I'm not saying why. This is not a why thing. This is just a fact. The fact is, when the Torah says Mazois, it says V'amarta Elov, you say it to him. So we say the Torah says. But when we have Ma'avodas Eslachem in the Torah, and Ma'edus Chukim Hashpatim, it doesn't say V'amarta Elov. It doesn't say necessarily responding to him, and therefore we give, give different answers. It's a Shena Daher, and what's going on over there in.
Maybe it says it's all kind of now directly. It says everyone else has their own tariff. Versus the Nar, there is one tariff for the Nar. There's no real. This is the way it is. It's just.
Therefore, what you
facts. By the Nar, it's just facts. You're just saying it as is. Everyone else is kind of operate directly. So therefore, there is no right.
There is no one answer. As was the time, there's an interesting idea. Okay, I hear. Very nice. Okay. Then we get to, fine, so then we start with Yochel Mir Chodesh, B'tchila of David Azar. I've asked him many years past that I believe the Arba Bonim are the four Shilas, are the Manishtana of the first Haggadah. The Manishtana of Avodah B'ninu L'far B'ntzayim V'yotzenu is those four kashas. Then we ask four questions again to lead into the second Haggadah, which is B'tchila of David Azar. The second Master Nusum Messiah Shevach, that second contrast. We were over David Azar, and then we came close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, was led in by the Arba Bonim's kasha. But for some reason we break with Yochel Mir Chodesh. I still don't have a great mahalach why Yochel Mir Chodesh comes in between the four kashas and B'tchila of David Azar. It should be four kashas and go straight into B'tchila of David Azar. For some reason Yochel Mir Chodesh is here. I'm still not 100% why. V'hi sha'am del avesayna v'landu. Right? So many learned V'hisha Amdal Avasayna B'lanu. This is like the central part of the Haggadah. It brings in the whole story about the bris and Abasarim, tells us what we're doing tonight. Most Mepharshim learned V'hisha Amda means the fact that Hashem told us, gave us hope. He said He's going to take us out. We have hope. We're going to get out of this. There's an end to this story. There's an end to this Golus. And Tziv says no. That's not how it's meant to. That's not how it's meant to be read because it doesn't fit with the rest of it. What does it mean? Oh. The Hisha Amda, we have hope because they're always trying to destroy us. That's like, whatever. It's a very Jewish way of talking. It's like they're always trying to destroy us, so we have hope. Like, He says, no. He says, Hagufa. V'hi sha'omda. The fact that they're trying to destroy us as what has been Aymin Lanu, Labasain of Lanu. The fact that every time we try to think, we're okay, we're good, we're just gonna mesh, we're gonna gel, we're gonna chill here, and it's gonna be great. No. Bam. Something happens. And you don't need anything, one look at what's going on and what's going on around us to know the emes of the power of this vart. That, the fact that Hashem told Avram, they're going to go, but they're always going to come back. They're going to come back to Yisrael. They're never going to become one of them. That's what's Oymed Lanu. That's what causes B'chol Davadar. The Bris Ben Yisrael doesn't cause Geula. You think, what does the Bris Ben Yisrael do for us? It brings us Geula. No, it brings us Gullus. And makes sure that we are always in Gullus. And you always remember that you're in Gullus, and you can never forget that. That is what is Oymed Lanu. The second you start to think, forget you're in Golas, the Hisham to the Bris Ben Yisrael reminds you you're in Golas. And that's what's Oymed Lanu, because Shebechol Davadar Amalenu Chalaseinu. Whenever, every single door, they're always trying to destroy us. Why are they always trying to destroy us? Because there's a Bris Ben Yisrael, that's why. And that's always reminding us.
It relates back to Yosef. He said, remember me, don't forget me. See that tact connection,
Right.
there's jail time.
What's the connection?
So, we should know, where we come from and who
Right.
we go into Hashem. So
100%.
Remember, you
Right.
me,
Right.
like, look at me, I'm in America, I'm assimilated,
Yes. Right, very nice. So Tzei Luman, my biggest love, Yaakov Avinu. Now it's beautiful. Look at where are we learning it from? We're learning it from Lavan. It's very strange. What does Lavan teach us anything about what? Just because we were saved from Lavan, therefore that's a right that we're always going to be. Lavan was before Yetzias Mitzrayim. So the fact that we had to get out of Mitzrayim and go down to Mitzrayim, Lavan doesn't count really in this whole post Yetzias Mitzrayim story. What's the raya? So he says, Zakta Netziv, that's exactly the point. Lavan, I think, is a good guy. Whatever. He was fine, they were a business partner. Okay, maybe you tried to steal a little from him, Was he really trying to destroy it? No, the Torah tells you, the Lavan Bikesh Lakas Akol, Lavan Arami Oivid Avi, he wanted to destroy Yaakov, and if he was allowed to, he would have destroyed him. What do you mean? He was such a nice guy. He would have, okay, fine. So they didn't have the best of relationships. But he was a pretty good guy overall. So I was telling you, no, you're not understanding the story. Arami Oivid Avi, had Lavan wanted to, he would have destroyed it. So every time in Golis, you're going to think, they're not so bad. Remember Lavan. Lavan didn't seem so bad either. But Arami Oivid Avi, the Torah is being made to you. That's Elisha B'chol Devrarim Leil Chalaseinu. Okay, Mitzvah on Shabbos, we're going to speak more about a little bit of different mahalas. My phone's telling me low battery. I guess it's giving me telling me to stop. But okay, we're not going to stop yet. We'll get there. I was trying to remember. I'm sure there's a whole vart in this Vanitzak. I can remember all of it, but this is over from his father, a beautiful vart. It says when we darshan the psukim of Arami Oivid Avi, Vanitzak al Hashem Elokei Avaseinu. What's Vanitzak al Hashem Elokei Avaseinu? So it says we cried out. Pasuk Vanitzak says we cried to Hashem. Where does it say? Right? What's going on in this Arami Oivid Avi? Just always to remember what's happening. We're taking psukim and devarim, which is by the Parsha of Bikurim that talk about Yetzias Mitzrayim. We're taking those psukim, 4 psukim say over the whole story. We're taking them back and showing where in Shemais the Torah says what happened. So it says Vanitzak al Hashem. In Devarim it says we cried out to Hashem. Where does it say in Shemais that we cried out to Hashem? It says Vayhibram mehem v'yomas melech Mitzrayim Vayonchu bnei Yisrael min avodah. They crept out from the avodah. Vayizoku, they called out. V'tav shavasim elokim, and Hashem heard their cries min avodah. Where does it say Vanitzak el Hashem elokei avosei? And the Targum says Vanitzak means v'tzalosa. They were mispala. Where does it say they were mispala to the Rebbeinu Shalom? Just says they complained about their work. They didn't they cried out. Their work was very hard. So he would say over from my shiur would say over from his father, Rabbi Yaakov Yafin Tzaddik Levrach. He would say over that Vayizoku. The Vayis says you had the kretz from Yid is a tefillah of Rebbeinu Shalom. When a Yid is being persecuted and cries out, even if he doesn't direct his cry to Rebbeinu Shalom, a Tav Shavasam will give the Rebbeinu Shalom is listening, and every one of those cries has a din of a tefillah, clap to the Rebbeinu Shalom. That's the Vanitzak L'Shalom Kenu, as if they were crying to the Rebbeinu Shalom. Okay. One thing we'll speak about a little more on Shabbos, to mention how now here B'Kitzur, lead to the last thing I want to say, is in the past, where does Dayenu come in? Almost everything makes sense. The structure fits basically everything, maybe a little out of order, but everything makes sense there. Up until Dayenu. I mean, we'd have to darshan Arami Oivid Avi. Why do we have to darshan Arami Oivid Avi? I don't know, but we got to darshan Arami Oivid Avi. We'll talk about that. But we have to darshan, that's really important, darshan Arami Oivid Avi. We darshan the whole thing. Then we have to do a Gamliel, right? I've shown Gamliel before. We have to do a Gamliel, right? That's really important. And then we have to say Hallel, right? Why is it not B'chol Davar? We're not didn't make Reb Chaim's list. I don't know, but I'm going to think about it. And we say Hallel. That all makes sense. What does Dayan have to do? It like comes in kind of in the middle of nowhere. What I've suggested before is that there's a lot of fours in the Haggadah. We're very busy with four kaisos, for children, four different things, and we have four psukim in around we have it over there we darshan. But in all these cases, there's like this secret fifth. There's this mysterious fifth that is there. It's not there. It's part of it. It's not part of it. And there's a fifth pasuk in the psukim of Bikurim also, right? We talk about how what are the four that we do read? We say. All right, whatever. Nitzak. That's the forest one we need, but we stop there. But there's another pasuk that Hashem brought us to the land of Eretz Yisrael, and He gave us Eretz Yisrael, and that's our curse. We don't mention that as part of the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim. It's kind of a separate story. It's unspoken. It's an unspoken part of the story, right? So I would suggest that Dayenu is perhaps to be Meramis to that is really to the point to get to that pasuk. That what do we do really in Dayenu? We go through everything. What Karla does. Everything we go through the midbar. But what do we end off with? Because it's to be Meramis is to remember that fifth pasuk is there. Yeah, Yetzias Mitzrayim, the first four are great. But don't forget, for whatever reason, it's not part of our Ikar Avodah right now to darshan that fifth pasuk. Maybe we're not ready for it yet. But let's say we're not ready for it. But the fifth pasuk is there, and don't forget that. And that's the Haysaf of Dayenu. When it comes to the kaisos, we have four kaisos. And then there's this, mysterious fifth kais that the Gemara mentions. We're not sure what the gears of the Gemara is. It's a rishus. It's not pashtus. It became like the minig of kais shelayo. They developed from that, from this idea in the Gemara. But there's this concept of like a rishustik of fifth kais. We don't actually drink it because we don't want to mess with the seder dvarim and perhaps drink more than we're supposed to. But we have it there at least b'derech begeder remes on the table. So we just to bring things a little for full circle, we've talked a little bit about the idea of how the cheftza of the mitzvah of Seder is to do havdalah, to separate, right? Just as we have a mitzvah on Shabbos of Kiddush, we have a mitzvah of Shabbos on Havdalah. We have a mitzvah on Lil Seder. That's the Shittas Rabbah. The mitzvah of Seder is to remember the Lil Seder, bring your children into that remembrance. That means to show the contrast. That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing the whole night. Now, how do we show Kiddush? How do we do Kiddush on Friday night? How do we have Havdalah on Friday night? We do it with wine. Dafka liyayin. I spoke of this in past years. The idea is why liyayin. Lahavdil, right? Lahavdil being tamei l'tor. You're absolutely not allowed to drink yain. A kohen's not allowed to drink yain. You drink wine, right? The idea is because Tumah and Tara is a very earthy experience, a very grounded experience. You got to be on your feet. There's no drinking yain in that. But being mavdum and kodesh l'chol requires a little bit of a transcendent experience. Requires a little bit of an aliyah, an ability to rise above, to see that kedusha and that chol, and to recognize the mundane things in your life. Requires a person to elevate himself, dangerously so, by drinking yain. But that's how we do it. That's what the kind of avodah, right? That's the contrast. Dafka the avodah b'tam l'tor, not yain. You can't have it. Being kodesh l'chol, dafka yeah have yain. So that's where Mekayan the Daled Kaisos do yain. But there's another way to that is perhaps the ikar way to really transcend, just to have the avodas hareach, right? The smelling the ketayos, right? Aaron's perking up. He's ready to go. He's interested now. He's going to have a lot to say on this afterwards. Yes, the avodas hareach with the ketayos is the ultimate way to transcend. The Shem Shmuel says. He brings from the Yisosco, we've spoken about Friday night a bunch of times, that out of the 5 senses that a person has, 4 of them were nifgam by the chet of Adam Rishon. 4 of them were dulled, lessened, weakened by the chet of Adam Rishon. The sense of taste, touch, sight, and hearing were all weakened by the chet of Adam Rishon. And we have to be masake in those 4 senses. It says the chush hareich was not weakened. The chush hareich was still direct. There's no weakening of the chusharech because it wasn't involved in the chet at all. In the psukim it talks about it. He felt the fruit, he ate it, he heard. Every sense is discussed. over there, except for the sense of reach, he says, and therefore it wasn't affected by it. So he says the Dalit Kaistos are to elevate the four senses that were nifkar by the chet, but the sense of smell, he says, doesn't need a tikkun. Therefore it's a rishus. It says the chiyav means you got to fix this. There's something that needs to be fixed. When there's nothing that needs to be fixed, when it's good, it's a rishus. You don't have to do it. You want to do it. You want to get into that. You want to get into that territory. Go for it. But it's a rishus. You don't have to. Therefore, the fifth kais, it says, is a rishus because the chush hareach was a nifka. What do we do with havdalah? What's the other thing we do when we want to be mavdim and kodesh l'chol besides for drinking yayin? You smell. And we're involved in the avodas hareach. Some want to say, I'll close with this, that where's the fifth ben? We have you got a fifth kais, you got a fifth pasuk. Where's the fifth ben? There's only 4 buttons. So, the classic, like, kier of Dikavart, the fifth ben is one that doesn't even show up at the Seder. He's not even there. He's not around. B'chlal. What does it say by Yaakov Avinu, by Yitzchak Seder? Right? What was Yitzchak Seder? He calls in Esav, he says, get me a korban Pesach. So matzah, Esav goes, Yaakov comes in, steals the brachas, right? How does Yitzchak finally masim to Yaakov the brachas? Vayarach is reich begadav. He smells the reich is begadim. The Balaturim says reich. What's the gematria of reich? He says 218. The gematria also of Lel Pesach is 218. He says because the reich was the avoid at that point of Yitzchak of Lel Pesach. Vayarach is reich begadav. Through the avodas hareich, he's able to give Yaakov a bracha. What does Chazal say? As reich begadav is reich boigdav. The rebellious ones of Yaakov is what he smelled. He saw, what's the idea? He saw that even the most rebellious of Klal Yisrael always have a connection. It's before there in the Medrash that what he saw, how even the most rebellious eventually came back. Right? The different meisim that he saw. There was always a path back, and they're always connected back. The idea of Laseda, the idea of the bris ben b'sar, is that there's this self-correcting system that Klal Yisrael has. That's what the Netziv is saying in the Hisha Omda. It self-corrects us. As soon as you try, you think you're going to do it. No. The system's going to push you right back. It's like you start thinking you could be like the guy, it's going to push you back. There's a self-correcting system. Second, you think I'm not even showing up to the Seder this year. Well, this doesn't doing it to me. One day a few years later, you're going to find yourself in a nation terrorist sitting there, doing whatever you do. The point is that the self-correcting system of Yaakov Avinu and the beautiful smell of Yaakov Avinu, which Yitzchak sensed then, is reich boigdav, is the way that even the most rebellious of Yaakov Avinu come back. That's the fifth son. That's the fifth kais. That's the reich of Gan Eden. That we all hope to smell. We hope to see. We should be zeicha to smell the beautiful smells of Yerushalayim with all the banim, with all the psukim. Everyone should have a beautiful Leil Seder wherever you are. I hope to see you all here. And shkayach.